Number 10. Dark Claw. One of the coolest looking hero matchups to come out of the Amalgam universe in my opinion. The hero known as Darkclaw is a combination of Batman and Wolverine named Logan Wayne. Like our familiar Batman, Wayne witnessed his parents' murder at a young age and then was sent off to live with his uncle in Alberta. However, that did not last very long because his uncle was murdered as well and Wayne was sent to live in a home run by nuns. Once old enough, he enlisted in the Royal Canadian Air Force alongside a man named Creed H. Quinn, and the two of them were submitted to the Weapon X program, aka the Canadian Super Soldier program. It was there that the Wolverine half of this character came to be, as it was here he learned of his metamutant powers and had his bones fused with adamantium. Quinn, however, was not so lucky because through the course of the experiments he grew more and more insane and would eventually become the Hyena, a combination of Sabretooth and the Joker and Darkclaw's greatest enemy. Equipped with the powers of Wolverine and the vast knowledge of Batman, Darkclaw is a truly awesome character, so check him out for yourself in his first appearance in 1996's Marvel vs. DC, number 3. Number 9. Thomas Wayne. Turns out crime fighting is a genetic thing when it comes to the Wayne family. In the Flashpoint timeline, Bruce is actually the one who's murdered by the robber Joe Chill instead of his parents Thomas and Martha. Now as a result, for reasons similar to his son, Thomas Wayne took up a personal vendetta against crime that led him to taking up the mantle of Batman. But unlike his son, he is much more ruthless in his actions, as he is happy to kill any criminal that gets in his way. Equipped with the same genius intellect and hand-to-hand combat skills you would expect from any Batman, this version of the Caped Crusader has also been seen with multiple firearms, and also an Amazonian sword. Thomas secretly funds his war on crime through his business, Wayne Casinos, and thanks to this he's able to fight some of the most notorious villains Gotham's ever seen. One being his own wife, Martha Wayne, the Joker of this timeline. So if you're not familiar with the Flashpoint timeline, I highly recommend you take a look at some of the storylines it follows. So check out this grittier version of Batman for yourself in his first appearance in Flashpoint Volume 2, number 1, so you can fully understand why he considers himself to be a man with too much blood on his hands to be considered good. Number 8. Grim Knight. This version of Batman is from the Dark Multiverse and serves under the Batman Who Laughs as basically a gun for hire, acting as his second in command. In his timeline, Bruce's origin story is pretty much the same as his Primary's counterpart, however, he kills Joe Chill right after the murder of his parents when Chill drops his gun and gives him the opening. For the next several years, Bruce traveled the world honing his skills as an assassin and eventually returns to Gotham City to strike fear into the criminals' hearts as this universe's Batman. He has done some truly terrible things, such as making Jim Gordon watch as he made two highly explosive blimps crash into both Arkham Asylum and Blackgate Penitentiary, or when he tortured Mayor Harvey Dent with radiation until he was allowed to put up surveillance cameras all over Gotham. Sure, all that made Gotham a much safer place, but there was definitely a better method to it. With a full arsenal of weapons hid around the city of Gotham and on his person, the Grim Knight is truly merciless and not someone you want to mess with. First appearing in 2019's The Batman Who Laughs Volume 2, number 1, Grim Knight truly shows how dark a Batman who kills can be. Number 7. Damian Wayne. Now let's jump to a possible future here for a second and take a look at a version of Damian Wayne who took up the mantle of Batman in Bethlehem. In this possible future, Bruce Wayne retired as Batman and Dick Grayson took up the mantle. However, he was killed by some explosive Jokerfish and Damian stepped up to the plate as Batman. Unlike his father and Dick Grayson, Damian's Batman in this future is more willing to injure and kill opponents if he judges it necessary to do so, and this is pretty easy for him to do because he has always been pretty violent and definitely has the know-how to take down anyone and anything. Now, it's heavily implied that in this possible future, Damian made a literal deal with the devil, exchanging his soul for immortality and the healing abilities he felt he needed to protect Gotham. And he felt this had to be done because he couldn't measure up to his predecessors, being his father and Dick Grayson. Using the city of Gotham as a weapon itself by setting traps throughout it, we've seen this Batman go up against the likes of Two-Face in order to save a young Terry McGinnis, who he eventually takes under his Batwing, training him to become the next Batman. Why not check out this possible future for yourself in 2007's Batman number 666. Number 6. Batman 1 Million. In the far-off 853rd century, criminals and crime fighters are still very prevalent, and the most dangerous criminals are actually imprisoned on the planet Pluto and overseen by this new Batman. Their secret identity is not known, but we do know that he was one of the children that Zaron forced to watch their parents' murder, and from that day on, he swore to never let such a tragedy happen again. They chose the symbol of the bat because he thought it stood for something more than just fear, stating it stood for justice and as an ideal. He studied for years on end, honing his fighting skills and knowledge in as many physical and mental techniques as possible, and all of that eventually paid off because he was eventually offered a position on the new incarnation of the Justice League alongside Superman and Flash 1 Million. After years of working together, they all went back in time to invite the Justice League of the 20th century to see the rebirth of the first Superman, Superman Prime. Much to their surprise, their companion Starman betrayed them and unleashed a plague onto Earth, and with the real Justice League being unable to stop them, Justice Legion Alpha stepped in to help them. Batman 1 Million worked with the 20th century Batman to find a way to stop Starman's plan, along with Dick Grayson and Tim Drake, using the technology of the Batcave, and together, they were able to stop his plan. ending with Starman returning to the light once more to stop what he had done. Give this storyline a read for yourself, starting with 1998's JLA number 23. Number 5. Owlman. Thomas Wayne Jr. from the Antimatter universe is the son of Thomas and Martha and older brother to Bruce. After his family's murder, he decided to take up the mantle of Owlman. However, unlike Batman, Thomas wanted to conquer the villains he went up with rather than just fight them. Thanks to his father's wealth that he was left as inheritance, Thomas underwent years of training and general enhancement so he could enact his plans of conquering Gotham's crime world. Alongside the other members of the Crime Syndicate, a group who is basically the evil version of the Justice League, they managed to establish and maintain control over a large portion of their Earth, even though they were up against other powerful organizations such as the Young Offenders and the Crime Lodge. Eventually, the Crime Syndicate began kidnapping people from the 52 multiverse matter-based worlds, and were visited by our Justice League to retrieve the people from the Justice League Earth. Thomas, along with Superwoman and Ultraman, were banished to a prison subdimension while Johnny Quick and the current Power Ring were captured. Highly recommend you check out the storyline for yourself, so check out Owlman in his first appearance in 2000's JLA Earth 2. Number 4. Azrael. John Palvalley, the genetically augmented assassin / vigilante for the group known as the Order of St. Dumas. Now, I said genetically augmented because Valley was a test tube baby and his genetic structure was altered by scientists with an animal DNA which allows him to do the insane feats a normal human could only dream of. Originally an ally and even apprentice of Batman, Azrael was the one to adopt the Batman moniker following the Dark Knight's crippling defeat at the hands of Bane. However, he went insane for a short while during his run as the Caped Crusader and decided to augment the Batsuit so it was capable of causing some serious damage. It was very apparent early on that Azrael's Batman was of a very different breed because he was much more ruthless, okay with killing, and pretty much just wanted to punish the criminals rather than save any lives. Although he was doing a great job of cleaning Gotham City of its criminals, Bruce felt his methods were much too violent and irresponsible and personally removed him from the mantle after his full recovery, causing Valley to return to his identity as Azrael. Valley was presumably killed in a battle against his two greatest foes, Beast and Scratch, as he was shot through his armor by a multitude of Teflon bullets, and only his costume was recovered. 5 years later, another Azrael was created by the Order in ex-police officer Michael Lane. Check out John Palvalley as both Azrael and Batman, starting with 1992's Batman Sword of Azrael, number 1. Number 3. Murder Machine. With an identical upbringing as the Batman we all know and love, Earth -44's Bruce Wayne ended up with one more tragic death in his life, the murder of his butler, Alfred. Blaming himself for Alfred's death, Bruce enlisted the help of Cyborg to create the Alfred Protocol, a powerful AI and hologram with the intent of keeping Bruce safe at all times. Within one day, the Alfred Protocol had executed all of the criminals in Arkham Asylum as he deemed them a threat to Bruce. Eventually, Bruce started to doubt his ability to keep himself safe and relied very heavily on the AI Albert, having him remove his ability to feel fear and sadness and replace his body with a mechanical one that would never ever fail him. This was the birth of the Murder Machine and thus began the Earth's demise. Like the other members of the Dark Knights, Murder Machine represents one of Batman's many fears and aspects of his life. This one in particular represents his fear of not being as self-sufficient as he thinks, his father-son relationship with Alfred, and the regret of cutting off other people. Check them out in their first appearance in 2017's Dark Days, the casting, number 1. Number 2. The Batman Who Laughs. Obviously, this twisted Batman had to make an appearance on this list today. However, he is not at number 1 because there are definitely some darker Batman out there. Hailing from the dark multiverse, we have Earth -22's Bruce Wayne, also known as the Batman Who Laughs. After an all-out assault from Joker against Gotham, Bruce completely loses it and snaps the Joker's neck, which causes a mysterious gas to leak from the Joker's mouth into Bruce's body. This led to the mad descent of Bruce's sanity and his transformation into the Joker-Batman hybrid known as the Batman Who Laughs. With the abilities of the Joker and Batman combined, alongside the Jokerized Robins known as Groblins or Dark Robins, the Batman Who Laughs assembled the darkest and most twisted versions of Batman across the dark multiverse and created the Dark Knights in order to wreak havoc on the world. In the events of Dark Knight Death Metal, he is seemingly killed by Wonder Woman's new Chainsaw of Truth, but I highly doubt this is the last we will ever see of him. So check him out for yourself in his first appearance in Dark Days, the casting, number 1. And finally, at number 1, we have Batman Earth 43. Now, not a whole lot is known about this Batman's life prior to his introduction, but it can be assumed that it was similar to the Batman origin we're all familiar with. You know, parents' death leads to training, leads to becoming Batman and fighting the likes of the Joker, the Riddler, etc. After discovering that the most famous vampire, Dracula, is still alive and operating in Gotham City, Bruce realizes that his recent dreams were the result of him being visited by Tanya, another vampire who was once under Dracula's control. Tanya had actually been biting Bruce but hadn't been taking any of his blood. She was instead infusing him with vampiric powers without destroying his humanity. Thanks to these new powers, Batman now possessed some incredibly enhanced senses, super strength, and more alongside his immense knowledge of hand-to-hand combat. With enough power to now kill Dracula, Batman confronts and kills him by impaling the vampire on a tree. However, this win came at a serious cost because Dracula was able to completely drain Batman of all his blood, effectively completing his transformation into a vampire. Fast forward a little bit and we see our vampiric Batman put into a coma thanks to a stake to the heart after his bloodlust and rage causes him to drain the Joker of all his blood. Alfred eventually awoke his master later on because Gotham City was overrun with criminals. However, this was a pretty bad idea because all he did was hunt down his enemies, both new and old, so he could just drain them of all their blood and kill them. He is eventually killed after he walks into the sunlight, hoping he can finally pay for what he did and have some peace, but he is revived once more later on in the search for Ray Palmer, Red Rain.
Number 10. Harley Sinn. Harley Sinn was one of the applicants to join Harley's gang of Harleys. Her name is Constance Brand. While she didn't end up becoming one of Harley's Harleys, she did still remain in Harley Quinn comics, and for a time was one of her villains. She's less of an exact alternate and more of an obsessed fan with a grudge. Eventually she and Harley made peace, but recently she has reappeared in the Black Label comic Harley Quinn and the Birds of Prey, where she was seen taking over Harley Quinn's place as the Joker's wannabe paramour. Here she was tasked with proving herself to the Joker by gruesomely killing a bunch of civilians who Joker felt had wronged him, including his mailman and an ice cream man who didn't happen to have Joker's favorite flavor in stock. It seems that she might once again be plotting to take down Harley Quinn, but this time at Joker's side. Number 9. Bizarro Harley. This version of Harley was a miserable version. She was created using Harley's genetic material and LexCorp's Bizarro creating device, or machine. Bizarro had originally wanted a Bizarro version of Lois Lane to be his perfect bride, but instead was willing to settle for his own version of Harley Quinn. Unfortunately, this version, being the opposite of Quinn, ended up being a huge stick in the mud and the exact opposite of fun. Unlike Harley, Bizarro Harley was a very serious and responsible person. Her speak was also a little weird for a Bizarro character, as well as not everything she said was fully reversed. In the end, Harley defeated her Bizarro self by putting her out of her misery and telling Bizarro Harley she was not lovable, trying to get her to prove she was by saying she was having a good time. This resulted in Bizarro Harley exploding because, it's hard for Bizarros to say things like good and nice. But hey, at least she went out with a bang. Number 8. Injustice. While in the end Injustice ends up being a story of redemption for Harley Quinn as we see her become a full-fledged hero, we have to remember where this whole thing starts and why it is that Harley is working towards redemption in the first place. At the beginning of the story, Harley is still Mr. J's partner in crime, meaning she is also responsible for Lois Lane's brutal death at the beginning of this story, and Jimmy's, as well as all of the chaos that ensues afterwards. For all we know, Harley could have even helped Joker create this notorious plot. Also, poor Jimmy. I feel like because of all the crazy stuff that follows in Injustice, everyone forgets about his brutal death. Shot in the head, right through his camera. R.I.P. Injustice Jimmy Olsen. I'm sorry that you died. Always feel bad for him. We all forget about it. Not me, not today. Number 7. Steven Sijek's Harleen. Sijek's Black Label Limited series Harleen is one of the darkest alternates we've seen of Harley yet, as it allows us to dive deep into Harley's psychology in a way we don't usually get to in comics. In this version of Harley Quinn's origin story, a traumatic encounter with the Joker scars the young psychiatrist for life, forever changing her. She later is given funding for a project which could help in the early detection of sociopathic behavior, granting her access to Arkham Asylum and Black Penitentiary, allowing her to study criminals who were held there. She runs into the Joker and decides to face her fears of him by becoming his therapist. He proved to be the perfect patient, causing Dr. Quinzel to become obsessed and extremely protective of the Joker. Over time, also finding she was falling in love with him, losing her sanity as she became more and more infatuated with her patient. Number 6. Arkham games. In the Arkham video games, Harley became a psychiatrist while training under Dr. Hugo Strange, which is pretty creepy to think about. Unlike most depictions of her as a psychiatrist, she did not this time around seem to have the best of intentions when it came to her patients, but more just a twisted and messed up fascination with the criminal mind. Here it was her ineptitude as a psychiatrist that allowed her to be manipulated by the Joker, not realizing that she was out of her league in treating him, and that he was using her. Dr. Quinzel quickly became obsessed with the Joker, falling madly in love with him, and willing to do anything that he asked of her, becoming his faithful servant who he often mistreated, and seeing Batman as the real villain of the story. Number 5. Haley Fitzpatrick. In Thrill Killer, Harley is instead Haley Fitzpatrick, a young teenage schoolgirl who is the paramour and partner in crime of the Joker. Still in this rendition. Though in this universe, her version of the Joker, Bianca Steeplechase, dies. A lot of people die actually in this alternate story, but not Haley. She is one of the few who survives. She ends up being put in therapy following the death of the Joker, as Bruce Wayne hopes she can be saved and redeemed. In the end, Haley is reported missing and has stopped attending her therapy sessions. Bruce notes that he should go looking for her first thing in the morning, as her family is worried sick. His commentary comes at us over top the images of Haley's parents and brother all shot dead, before cutting to an exterior of their family home up in flames, where we can see Haley dressed once again as Harley Quinn. She is holding a gun and dashing away from the burning home with a smile on her face, implying that in this universe, Harley as a teenage girl kills her own family in cold blood. Woo. Number 4. Neo Joker. In the series Batman White Knight, there are two Harleys. One is the real Harleen Quinzel, and one is an imposter, a fake, if you will. The fake version of Harley apparently took over for the real Harley Quinn years ago, when the Joker killed Jason Todd. That's when the real Harleen left and Marianne Drews stepped in. The Joker was so preoccupied with his schemes that he never even noticed. When he found himself cured of his psychotic nature and returned to try and make amends to Harley, Marianne was the first version he ran into. Marianne herself was of course also crazy and hated that Jack Napier, formerly known as the Joker, had apologized and promised to make amends for how he had mistreated Harley in the past. This version of Harley, Drew's version, would go on to become the Neo Joker, while Jack himself attempted to become a hero. Number 3. White Knight Harley Quinn. The other Harley Quinn from this alternate universe has a much brighter story. She is reunited with the love of her life, and now both of them are able to finally be together in a healthier setting, with him being cured. She agreed to help Jack Napier, and the two are married, both promising one another to be better to each other this time around. If you never thought you'd ship these two together, the Joker and Harley Quinn, this is a story that will likely surprise you in how much you actually love their relationship as it is written here. However, this fairy tale ending does not last for Harley. Jack Napier eventually gives into the darkness and becomes the Joker once more. Harley is left alone, pregnant with his twins, which she eventually gives birth to, and attempts to raise on her own. In a new series, we'll see a continuation of her story, and this time around it's likely to be more dark. In Batman White Knight presents Harley Quinn, a new serial killer is out on the rise who seems to be connected to the Joker. The GTO and FBI turn to Harley for help with the case. To protect her children and her city, Harley agrees to help, but in order to do so, will be forced to face her dark past, while juggling motherhood and facing her romantic feelings for Bruce Wayne, aka Batman, who is currently behind bars. Will this alternate be able to look madness in the face once more and survive? We'll have to wait till October to find out. I'm really excited about the series. Hopefully it ends up happening. Please. Please let it happen. Number 2. Azzarello's Harley Quinn. This version of Harley I think is one of the darkest because she also happens to be one of the most quiet. We never get to read her words or hear her voice in the Brian Azzarello and Lee Bermejo 2008 graphic novel The Joker. Here Harley Quinn is painted as the Joker's solace, his girlfriend and partner in crime. She is mainly seen having intimate moments with the Joker and ruthlessly killing people alongside him. She takes joy in the trail of chaos, bloodshed, and violence that she and the Joker leave behind her though. The closest we get to seeing her speak is seeing her maniacal laughter. Number 1. Harlequin. In the DC animated film Justice League Gods and Monsters, Harley Quinn is known simply as Harlequin, and is a serial killer who murders people, chops them up, and uses their parts to make her own version of the perfect family. Batman eventually tracks her down and she fights him with a chainsaw. In the end, however, she becomes injured by the chainsaw herself and attempts to surrender. However, this version of Batman himself is a monster. This version of Batman is the vampire and former scientist Kirk Langstrom. Instead of allowing Harley Quinn to surrender, he sinks his fangs into her neck, drinking her blood.
Number 10. Red Sun Superman. Answer me this, have you ever wondered what would happen if Superman didn't have that good and wholesome upbringing and was raised somewhere else, like I don't know, let's say the Soviet Union? Well, wonder no longer, because that is exactly what happens in the comic book miniseries Superman Red Sun. Instead of his ship crash landing in Kansas, Superman lands in the Ukraine in the middle of the Cold War. In the story, Superman is raised with the ideals that the Soviet Union instills in him, and the world feels a sense of fear as a superpowered alien is the Soviets' new secret weapon. He still has all the powers you associate with Superman because he is still exposed to the yellow sun. With the passion and sense of justice we've come to expect from Superman, Soviet Superman was so dedicated to his country, which made him incredibly dangerous for the wrong reasons, because he was a living weapon that the Soviets used to spread their power throughout the globe. Over the course of about 20 years, he traveled the world with Wonder Woman, converting other nations and even becoming their new leader. He was a good leader, don't get me wrong, because he is still Superman, it was just for a very bad world. Highly recommend you check out this alternate Superman for yourself, starting with 2003's Superman Red Sun Volume 1, Number 1. Number 9. Ultraman. Similar to our Superman's origin story, this iteration was sent from the planet Krypton to Earth 3. However, it's not really stated why, since Krypton didn't explode in this universe. On his way to Earth 3, he first came into contact with kryptonite, which started the change in his body that turned him into the superpowered powerhouse that we know. And since then, every time he came in contact with kryptonite, he only grew stronger. After becoming an adult, he renamed himself Ultraman, and this is where he vastly differs from our Superman because he became a brutal authoritarian and ruthlessly rules his version of the Justice League called the Crime Syndicate, conquering most of the world with their help. After largely conquering most of the world, Ultraman developed a new type of supervision that allowed him to see into the Earth 1 dimension. Seeking an open battle to test their powers after defeating the military forces of their native Earth 3, the Crime Syndicate challenged the combined forces of the Earth 1 Justice League of America and Earth 2 Justice Society of America. Not able to withstand the combined might of two Earth's greatest super beings, the Crime Syndicate was defeated and imprisoned in an extra-dimensional bubble created by the Earth 1 Green Lantern. Ultraman is a perfect example of someone who has all the power but isn't happy. Hailing from an Earth where evil always wins, Ultraman is always looking for something new to conquer, torment, or honestly both. Check him out for yourself, starting with his first appearance all the way back in 1964's Justice League of America number 29. Number 8. Overman. Hailing from Earth 10, a universe where the Germans won World War II, we have Overman, the leader of the new Reichman and the Superman of this Earth. Kal-El was sent to Earth 10 as a baby in a ship away from the planet Krypton because it was dying. Pretty standard Superman origin, however, much like the Red Sun Superman, he was raised by the wrong people. Alongside the German forces, Overman conquered the world in, I want to say, less than 20 years, after which he decided to leave the Earth for a while. 3 years later, he returned with a clear head and saw all the damage he helped cause and became an advocate against all of what he once stood for, while still working alongside them for some reason. Eventually, German scientists used Kal's cells to create a clone of him known as Overgirl that Overman learned to love like family. However, she died not too long after her creation, and that hit him hard. Inconsolable and grief-stricken, Overman leaked some precious information to the freedom fighters that resulted in the demise of the new Reichman and Metropolis. Check out probably one of the saddest Superman stories I've ever heard of, starting with 2015's The Multiversity Guidebook number 1. Number 7. The Eradicator. Existing on New Earth, the Eradicator was an ancient Kryptonian weapon merged with a human body to form the last son of Krypton, an extreme vigilante who surfaced after the death of Superman. The Eradicator was given to Superman while on Warworld, and it began its work again on Earth, creating the Fortress of Solitude and trying to manipulate Superman into becoming the ideal Kryptonian. When it failed, the Eradicator created a new body for itself based on Superman. The Eradicator had all of Superman's memories, even though it wasn't actually the real Superman, but was far more brutal and violent. It didn't actually have the power to absorb solar radiation, so it relied on Superman's body to transfer energy to it. Over the years, it became more compassionate and even fought alongside Superman in a few fights, the most notable being their fight against Cyborg Superman, and even sacrificed itself to save Earth, but it always remained dedicated to preserving Superman and Kryptonian life. In DC's Rebirth continuity, the Eradicator has returned and it's just as dangerous as ever, so why not take a look at the Superman clone story for yourself, starting with their first appearance in 1989's Action Comics Annual number 2 all the way to 2011's Action Comics number 901. Number 6. Black Zero. This is actually the third Black Zero. This was an alternate version of Superboy known as Superman 2 from a hyper-time stream in which Superman had not returned to life and his clone had been left to fully mature and develop his full Kryptonian powers in addition to some tactile telekinesis. With this new power, he could create a field around himself that made him invulnerable, allowed him to fly, and also move heavy objects, similar to Superman's strength. Superman 2 tried to fight crime but ended up losing a battle that cost its life, leading to a backlash against human cloning. He decided to rename himself after the pro-cloning organization on Krypton, Black Zero, and fight for clone rights. He used Project Cadmus to kill off most of the world's superheroes and recreated most of them as clones of the originals, but that wasn't enough for him. He entered Hypertime, a cross between a time stream and the multiverse during an era where DC Comics only consisted of one universe, to travel to other realities to fight for clone rights as well. Black Zero was a fanatical and ruthless warrior who was eventually and thankfully stopped by the combined strength of numerous Superboys from across Hypertime. Appearing across only a few issues, this is a short story that is definitely worth a read, so if you feel like it, check out 1999 Superboy Volume 4, number 61 to 64. Number 5. Super Doom. After a trip to Tibet, Clark, Lois Lane, and Jimmy Olsen built a machine that used vibrations to bring thoughts into reality, and the best possible use for it in their eyes was to create a Superman that was a thought-powered redeemer capable of saving the world. Unfortunately, they ended up having to sell the machine to Overcorp, and Overcorp took their Superman idea and twisted it so much that the brutal and toxic Super Doom was born. A self-described killer franchise, Super Doom wasted no time in becoming the preeminent superhuman of its world, and sought out to eliminate any form of competition, meaning he was on the hunt for other Supermen. After ravaging countless parallel planets and butchering numerous Superman and Superman-like adjacent people, it finally tracked down its creators to Earth-23, where it killed Jimmy and mortally wounded Clark. Later, Super Doom was summoned to Prime Earth by an unwilling Lex Luthor as a final doomsday weapon against Superman, and after a brutal struggle, Superman overcame the monster, which, upon defeat, transformed into a bomb that Superman managed to place on the dark side of the moon before detonation, seemingly annihilating Super Doom once and for all. Give the story a read for yourself, starting with 2012's Action Comics Volume 2, number 9. Number 4. Superman Earth 1198. In Superman the Dark Side, the baby Kal-El ship is diverted on its path to Earth and instead lands on the planet Apokolips, home of the Overlord Darkseid. In this version of Superman, Darkseid is the one to raise him, and Superman becomes his loyal and devoted disciple and helps him in the destruction of New Genesis. As well as this, Superman doesn't grow up to wear tights and a cape. Instead, he opts for a menacing black and red armor with a lightning bolt S across his chest. Not only is this Superman powerful, evil, and terrifying, he also has a thing for weapons, using the Apocalypsean sword and Omega Warhead, as well as anything he can get his hands on. Superman in this story is more of a pawn for Darkseid than inherently evil, but much like the others, his actions have horrific consequences. With his direct and indirect help, Darkseid managed to extract the anti-life equation from Superman's cells and subjugated the world and expanded his reach. With Earth by his side and a yellow sun to power him up, Superman was forced to fight Darkseid to end his reign of terror. Highly recommend you check out this 3-issue run for yourself, starting with 1998 Superman Darkseid number 1. Number 3. Cyborg Superman. Now, there have been two major characters that have become Cyborg Superman. The first and most famous is the astronaut Hank Henshaw. When a solar flare hit Henshaw's spacecraft during a space experiment, he and his crew started to mutate. The mutation was so strong that once back on Earth, Henshaw's crew, along with his wife, all committed suicide. Before Henshaw's body disintegrates from the solar flare, he is able to upload his mind using NASA equipment. With the help of the birthing matrix that was used to send Superman to Earth, Henshaw creates a cyborg body with all the powers that Superman has. After this, Henshaw finds out that Superman had thrown the Eradicator into the sun, which caused the original solar flare. Blaming Superman for everything, the newly formed Cyborg Superman seeks revenge on the Man of Steel. To destroy the real Superman's reputation, Cyborg Superman tried to use a nuclear bomb to destroy Metropolis. He was defeated because that's what happens when you go up against Superman, but used his powers to inhabit machines to return over and over and over again, once even conquering most of the planet Apokolips. After his ultimate defeat, he was taken in by Sinestro during the Sinestro Corps War, making him even more powerful than ever. Since the New 52 era, Cyborg Superman has been revamped as having been the father of Supergirl, Zor-El, who survived Krypton's destruction only to have been transformed into the villain he is today. Why not give Hank's story a read for yourself, starting with 1990's Adventures of Superman number 466. Number 2. Lord Superman. This alternate Superman doesn't have any roots with comics. He is actually from the Justice League TV series, specifically 2003's episode A Better World, and is one of the first Dark Superman that we've seen in the animated universe. This Superman lost his way in battle with President Lex Luthor after Luthor executed the Flash in front of him, and mocked the Man of Steel for never being able to see things through to their logical conclusion. Superman, overcome with rage, executed Luthor with his heat vision, took over the world with his Justice League's help, and formed the Justice Lord's crime-free regiment. They saw themselves as the world's saviors, and the Terror was a small price to pay to realize their vision. Of course, when they found an alternate Earth, they immediately imagined all the quote-unquote good they could have done there, and Lord Superman's incredible powers would have let him succeed on this new Earth if it weren't for the regular Superman, who managed to defeat the Justice Lord before it was too late. I think the worst thing about Justice Lord Superman is that he truly thought he was doing the right thing, but We all know for a fact that he wasn't. Check out this 2-part episode for yourself and let me know what you think in the comments below. And finally, number 1, Injustice Superman. Before I dive more into this one, I have to say that I love the Injustice games so much. I remember when I first got the game and I did not put it down until I was finished with the story, so comment below who your go-to character is. In Injustice 1, I'd have to say mine is either Nightwing or Batman, but in Injustice 2, it has to be Green Arrow or Scarecrow. Anyways, sorry about that, let's talk about Injustice Superman. In a storyline amalgamated from diverse comic plots along with the Justice League animated 2-parter, A Better World, that I just talked about, the Joker sadistically fear gasses Superman into killing Lois Lane. Superman responds by putting his open hand straight through the clown's chest and turns the world into a dictatorship-like police state. In the process, he doxes Batman, murders Shazam and Martian Manhunter, converts the Justice League into his personal secret police, and gets his butt kicked by Alfred Pennyworth. He's finally defeated by a still good Superman from another universe who encases him in a red sunlight generating capsule. Now there have been a few storylines over the years that have revolved around the idea of what would happen if Superman went bad and whether anyone could stop him, and this just proves that the only man who can take down Superman is Superman himself. Why not play the games again for yourself to refresh your memory, or check out 2013's Injustice Gods Among Us #1. Number 10, Speed Demon. Coming to us from the Amalgam Universe, a parallel universe that is composed of mashups of some of our favorite Marvel and DC characters that was unfortunately destroyed thanks to the cross-multiversal conflict, comes Blaze Allen, a combination of Barry Allen and Johnny Blaze. Once a stunt rider working at a carnival, Blaze Allen becomes the Speed Demon following the death of his wife at the hands of the evil Night Spectre. He was convinced by Merlin to bond with the demon known as Etrigan, and from there, the entity known as Speed Demon was born. Granted the abilities of Ghost Rider, including his fiery powers as well as super strength, Speed Demon is not actually all that fast despite his name and lineage. While the character is a formidable fighter and an all-around powerful being, he falls very short in the speed department, especially compared to all the other speedsters. There have been other characters who have taken up this mantle, including both Jay Garrick and Wallace West, however all of their abilities seem to be similar to the originals. Check out Blaze Allen for yourself, starting with his first appearance in 1996's Speed Demon #1. Number 9, Deceased Flash. Now a member of the anti-living, Barry Allen, formerly known as the hero The Flash, is exactly what you think he is, a zombified speedster. When the anti-life equation begins spreading worldwide, Barry went into hiding alongside Kid Flash, until they were found by Superman and Green Lantern. Leaving Wally in their more than capable hands, the Flash sped off to the Daily Planet where he encountered an infected Giganta. Thankfully though, she was taken down with a blast to the head from Cyborg. Soon after, we see the Fortress of Solitude turned into a shelter for the uninfected heroes. However, an infected Martian Manhunter was able to make it through, and not only did he kill Lex Luthor by just ripping him in half, he infected the Flash with a scratch to the back as well. Barry immediately ran out of the fortress because he didn't want to hurt or infect anyone else, and it didn't take long for him to become fully infected, and he started attacking the remaining survivors all across the world. He was finally stopped by Superman after the two collided into each other at full force, killing the speedster right then and there, but not before he was able to infect the Man of Steel. Give this storyline a read for yourself, starting with 2019's Deceased #1. Number 8, Barry Allen Out of Time. Hailing from a possible future, this iteration of the Flash is a much darker Barry Allen from 20 years in the future. This future Flash first appears in the Flash Annual Volume 4 #3 as a broken man. Reeling from the death of a close friend and fellow speedster Wally West, Future Flash travels backwards through time on a crusade to murder all the former enemies he deems responsible for West's death, hoping to somehow change the future. His actions only widen a tear in the Speed Force, however, and the once hero ultimately decides to use a present-day Barry Allen's energy to seal the rift, proving his superiority in a one-on-one battle against himself. Because apparently the Flash is like a fine wine and only betters with age, the pair are soon interrupted by the arrival of Wally West. Able to take on both speedsters at once, Future Flash's actions caused the one thing he began his quest to stop: the death of Wally West. Give the storyline a read for yourself, starting with the Flash Annual Volume 4 #3, and let me know what you think of it in the comments below. Number 7, The Rival. Real name Edward Clare, The Rival is the arch enemy of the Golden Age Flash, Jay Garrick, and is one of the oldest speedsters around. Clarence was a professor at the university Jay Garrick went to and believed that he had the know-how and means to recreate the speed formula that gave Jay Garrick his powers in the first place. He was able to develop a drug derivative of the same formula called Velocity 9, and after taking it himself he gained the powers a speedster would have. However, he found out that they were only temporary. He became the criminal that he is because his findings were rejected by his fellow science peers, and decided then to don a darker version of Jay Garrick's costume and commit crimes under the name The Rival. After losing to the Flash the first time, the Rival resurfaced a couple months later, and during his battle with the Flash, he was somehow able to reach light speed and just vanished and was stuck traveling through the Speed Force until he was pulled out by Johnny Sorrow. Check him out for yourself in his first appearance in 1949's Flash Comics number 104. Number 6. Dark Flash. Walter West is essentially an identical version of Wally West, just from another timeline, with their two histories mirroring each other's up until one certain point. Walter's version of Linda Park, the girlfriend/wife of Wally, is killed during a battle with Cobra. Turning him into a very bitter speedster and eventually the Dark Flash, Walter develops an authoritarian zero-tolerance policy for criminals, going so far as to cruelly maim them if they denied his actions and got in his way. Eventually, Walter learned that the love of his life was still alive and well in another timeline, and he set out to defeat Wally West and completely replace him. Able to easily take on his alternate timeline counterpart, Wally, who is often considered the fastest character to take up the Flash mantle, which further extends the parallel between the two. Check him out for yourself, starting with his first appearance in 1999's Chain Lightning finale, Finish Line. Number 5. Johnny Quick. A member of the Crime Syndicate of America, an evil version of the Justice League hailing from Earth 3, Jonathan Allen is Johnny Quick, the Flash of this universe. After conquering the entirety of Earth 3, the Crime Syndicate of America decided to abandon their Earth to terrorize and take over Earth 1 and 2. It took the combined efforts of the Justice League and the Justice Society of America to stop them, although unfortunately for everyone that wasn't the end of their reign of terror. Now Johnny was initially depicted as being slower than the Flash, however he figured out a way to make up for his shortcomings by developing a helmet that vastly increased his top speed while also deepening his relationship with the Speed Force, making Johnny Quick more than a match for the Flash. Since then, Johnny has shown tremendous command over the Speed Force, defeating countless superheroes in a matter of microseconds in the Forever Evil storyline. It was only after Alexander Luthor, aka Mazza, stole his power that he met his end. Check him out for yourself, starting with his first appearance in 1964's Justice League of America number 29, or feel free to skip ahead to his newer iteration starting with 2013's Justice League Volume 2, number 23. Number 4. The Red Death. Once the hero of Gotham, Bruce Wayne from Earth -52 was forced to seek more extreme approaches to prevent crime after losing all of his Robins. Coming to the conclusion that he wasn't quite fast enough to fight crime, Bruce set his eyes on the Flash, deeming himself more worthy of the Speed Force than Barry Allen, which is pretty presumptuous, but okay, whatever floats your boat. After defeating Barry, Bruce strapped him to the front of the Batmobile and drove them both into the Speed Force using the power of the Batmobile combined with the Cosmic Treadmill. The two merged together and Batman became the Red Death, using his new powers to kill instead of just stopping crime, much to Barry's dismay as his consciousness was still very much alive in Bruce's head. Like all of the Dark Knights of the multiverse, the Red Death represents one of Batman's fears, this one being losing members of the Bat family and his love for them and regret for those he failed. His dialogue and his Speed Force infection also imply he might represent Batman's fear of old age slowing him down as well. Check him out in his first appearance in 2017's Dark Days, The Casting, number 1. Number 3. Reverse Flash. No, we're not talking about Eobard Thawne, we're going to be looking at the second Reverse Flash, Daniel West. Daniel ran away from home at an early age because of his abusive and drunk father, and by the time he was 18, he had fallen into the wrong crowd and was a small-time thug. All he wanted more than anything was to mend his relationship with his sister Iris, but after his first attempt, he was thwarted by the Flash and sent to jail for 5 years. When he got out, he wanted nothing more than to kill his abusive father because he felt that was the only way he could make amends with his sister, and gained his Speed Force powers that allowed him to travel back in time after a monorail crashed, and from then on he called himself the Reverse Flash and killed anyone who had a connection to the Speed Force so that he could drain their power. It got to the point where the only two left with a connection to the Speed Force were the Flash and Iris West, and Daniel was able to go back in time to attempt to kill his father. However, it didn't really work out, because his younger self and Iris caught him in the act. He then realized the error of his ways and turned his powers over to the Flash, who set everything right once again. Check out this Reverse Flash for yourself, starting with his first appearance in 2012's The Flash, Volume 4, number 0. Number 2. Black Flash. They say death eventually catches us all, but what happens when you're too fast even for death itself? Well, that's where the Black Flash comes in. Easily one of the most mysterious entities in the DC universe, Black Flash is a symbol of death for speedsters across the multiverse, appearing just before the death of every significant speedster. Able to easily keep pace with the fastest beings in existence, it seems death really is impossible to outrun, even for speedsters. The Black Flash first made an appearance when Wally West seemingly cheated death by using his speedster powers to escape the inevitable. When the Black Flash realized he needed a human host to properly function, he chose Linda Park as his host. After Flash Rebirth brought back Barry Allen from the dead, he also noticed that the Speed Force was changing him, and it was revealed that the Reverse Flash's actions had mutilated the Speed Force and was turning Barry Allen, its avatar, into the Black Flash itself. The entity that could turn any speedster to dust by touching him. The current host of the Black Flash mantle is Eobard Thawne, aka the Reverse Flash. Check out this Horseman of Death for yourself, starting with 1998's The Flash, Volume 2, number 138. Number 1. Godspeed. August Hart was the former detective partner of Barry Allen. August was the only witness to Barry's accident that turned him into the Flash, so while going after a criminal organization called the Black Hole, August was struck by lightning during a Speed Force storm in Central City. He became the Flash's quote-unquote partner, but in secret. August became the ruthless vigilante known as Godspeed, and got his revenge on who he suspected to be his brother's killer. Godspeed is basically what the Flash would be if Barry Allen had one bad day. The Flash refrains from using his lethal force, but Godspeed doesn't at all. Godspeed's argument is that Central City would have been a much safer place had the Flash shown some bloodlust. He proves this point when he kills Eobard Thawne, aka the Reverse Flash, who didn't have any speedster powers at the time. Thawne did get his revenge eventually though, because after Barry brings back Thawne via time travel, that Thawne kills August. Man, keeping up with that whole time travel and speedster thing is so tough. Either way, Godspeed is one of the most deadly and dangerous enemies the Flash has ever had to race against. Check him out for yourself, starting with 2016's The Flash Rebirth Volume 2, number 1.
Number 10. Harley Quinn animated series. Sure, this version of the Joker is quite hilarious, as this is a mature comedic animated show, but that doesn't mean that he isn't dark. He is still, after all, the Joker. This version of the Joker actually succeeds in taking over Gotham City at the end of season 1, trapping the Justice League, defeating Batman, torturing Harley's crew, and defeating even the other members of the Legion of Doom. The guy even kills Scarecrow for unmasking Batman in front of him by making his head explode with acid. It's true, it happened. He is violent, successful, and still quite dark. He also makes his entrance in season 1, episode 1 by wearing the captain of a yacht's face, ripping it off like a mask to reveal his own. Ugh. Number 9. Emperor Joker. When you give Joker 99.99% of Mr. Mxyzptlk's reality warping powers, you can expect things to get weirdly dark. So it shouldn't come as a surprise that Emperor Joker was born in the comics and that he did all kinds of twisted, dark things. One of the worst things though for me was he set almost everyone in a horrible time loop where they were usually trapped in some way or being tortured, or being trapped and tortured. The worst of combos. Or I guess in Joker's case, the best of combos? Number 8. Joker film. The Joker film may exist in its own bubble, but that bubble was a pretty dark and bleak one. Arthur Fleck is played by Joaquin Phoenix in the film, and the film is based off of the Killing Joke origins for the villain. The idea that one bad day is all it takes to turn someone insane or change someone's life dramatically. In the case of the 2019 Joker film, that one bad day is actually kind of more of a snowball effect. Arthur Fleck is a failed comedian who is mentally ill, and when cut off from his medication, quickly becomes overwhelmed by all the negative aspects of his life and shocking revelations. In the end, he ends up killing his favorite show host on national television, similar to a moment in the Dark Knight Returns animated story, and confirming Arthur Fleck's full transformation into the Joker, becoming a killer, a villain, and inspiring riots in Gotham. Number 7. Christopher Nolan's The Dark Knight. Heath Ledger had one of the most ruled by chaos versions of the Joker. This was a grittier, darker interpretation of the character that was so powerful it actually influenced Joker's appearance and senseless love of violence in the comics, radiating outwards. Ledger and Christopher Nolan's interpretation of the character was actually a perfect marriage of the silly chaos that is the Joker, but cut with a grotesque sense of recklessness that made this interpretation so dangerous. It remains a great homage to the classic Joker while also being a deadly modern spin on the character. Number 6. Vampire Joker. The Joker of Earth 43 ends up appearing to die, and in so turns Batman evil, causing him to give into his bloodlust and cementing his transformation into a full-fledged monster and vampire. Batman himself had already been changed into a vampire when he and the Joker came to final blows. Batman though remained immune to most vampire weaknesses as he still maintained a pure heart, having never fed off of a human. Joker killing Batman's companion, Werecat Selina Kyle, however, threw Batman into a rage, causing him to give into his vampire instincts. He killed Joker and fed off of him, giving into the darkness within himself, and this meant that in death, Joker had actually won. And although Batman attempted to dispose of Joker's body in such a way that, he'd never return as a vampire, somehow Joker managed to survive and did return as a vampire himself during Convergence. Number 5. Killing Joke. This version and Joker story will always have a place in comic book history as being one of the most controversial. But besides that, it also gives us a very dark alternate version of the Joker, and a much sadder version. It paints the picture of Joker as a man who leaves his job at a chemical plant to pursue a career as a stand-up comedian. Unfortunately, no one really finds him very funny, save for his pregnant wife, who insists that he always manages to make her smile. Aww. Low on cash, he agrees to help some criminals with a robbery, guiding them through the chemical plant that he used to work for. After finding out his wife and baby, however, have perished, he is forced to go through with the plan anyway and ends up falling into a vat of chemicals. While of course not an official origin story for the Joker, it is a very dark origin that helps to explain the Joker's madness, and even somehow makes you feel sympathy for the character that in the same book paralyzes Barbara Gordon and tortures her father, Commissioner Gordon. Number 4. Injustice Joker. While Injustice Joker may not have survived very long, he was one of the most brutal and dark because, like some of Joker's other alternates, he was willing to trade his life just to see his plan come to fruition. And come to fruition, it did. Joker was successful in driving Superman to his breaking point, causing him to kill the Joker and turn into a villain himself. One of the best ways, of course, to turn Superman into a villain is to take out all of the people who keep him the most human, such as his pal Jimmy Olsen and of course Lois Lane. In doing this, although the Joker died, he won. Because of this incident and of course Metropolis being blown up, Superman feels he has no choice but to take hold of the world in order to protect Earth, along the way losing even more of his humanity and becoming himself sort of a paranoid dictator. Number 3. Martha Wayne. In Flashpoint, we get to visit an alternate timeline where Bruce was the one who died, not his parents. They are forced to live with the loss of their son, which inspired Thomas Wayne to take up the mantle as Batman, but drives his wife Martha insane. She ends up becoming the Joker after Thomas Wayne's Batman goes to take care of the criminal responsible for murdering his son. He tells Martha that he too misses Bruce, and he also misses her smile. When he returns after pummeling the criminal Joe Chill to death with his bare hands, he finds out that Martha has given herself a Glasgow smile. Yee. Number 2. The Batman Who Laughs. Batman Who Laughs is of course more considered an alternate version of Bruce Wayne than of the Joker, but in truth, he's kind of an amalgam of both. Breathing in the Joker's venom that exudes from his corpse after Batman kills him is what causes Bruce to become the Batman Who Laughs. In a sense, Joker, although dead, lives on within him, twisting his mind into something closer to the Joker's than to Bruce's. Although this character just goes to show how close these two characters really could be when it comes to their potential for evil. So wait, would that make Batman kind of an alternate version of Joker himself, and vice versa? Does that mean that Joker's an alternate version of Batman? Batman's an alternate version of Joker. Huh. Number 1. Earth -22 Joker. Why is it that all the darkest iterations of Joker have to die? Well, because, you know, something is about to go horribly wrong when you allow the Joker to die. One of the darkest versions of the Joker to date appeared in the origin story for the Batman Who Laughs. We find out the Batman Who Laughs became who he was because of this Joker, the Joker of Earth -22. Knowing he was going to die soon, finally being poisoned to death by the toxin which had made him who he was, he planned to go out with a bang. This meant taking down all of Batman's former foes, proving that he himself was the ultimate foe, and torturing Batman by orphaning a bunch of children in front of him before exposing the kids to the Joker venom, driving them insane. In doing so, this Joker brought about the most evil creation. Batman snapped and killed the Joker, releasing the very venom that would transform him into the terrifying Batman Who Laughs. And yet Joker got the last laugh there, I think. Number 10. Arrowverse. Similar to the comics, CW's Arrowverse has also had their own version of the Suicide Squad team. This version was as equally dark as the comic book version, though not quite as twisted. Tara Strong did the voice for the Harley we saw locked up in the show, but was not the actress that we briefly saw in those shots. This team used to be led by Amanda Waller and featured Deadshot, Shrapnel, and Bronze Tiger. No Harley. However, leadership was later taken over by Oliver Queen's partner John Diggle and his wife Lila Michaels, aka Harbinger, with the roster also being changed to feature Jericho, Cupid, and China White. Number 9. Blackest Day. We don't really get to see this version of the Suicide Squad, alas. We just get to hear instead about their tragic fate. In the DC House of Horror Comics special, we get a collection of horror stories set in the DC world, and what we can safely assume are alternate spooky universes. Ooh. One story even features an alternate version of famed Squad member Harley Quinn, where she is a ghost who haunts a man and drives him insane, making him kill tons of people, and all the while teasing him. Typical Harley. In the story Blackest Day, a zombie apocalypse has overrun the world, and Harley Quinn and all of the other members of Amanda Waller's Suicide Squad are confirmed dead by John Constantine, who sends a communique to the Justice League Watchtower before himself being overrun by zombies. It turns out that the Justice League themselves have already been overrun, with Flash infecting them with the virus out on the Watchtower. Number 8. Deceased Hope at World's End. While this series is a little more optimistic than most compared to some of the other DC stuff, it features 2 surviving members of the Suicide Squad, the new Suicide Squad, Ayer and Wink. In this alternate universe, the 2 characters are still alive but are faced with the semi-zombie apocalypse, whose infection has reached everywhere via the life equation. This is one of those times when flight powers and functional wings like Ares really do come in more handy, even though I usually rag on that ability sometimes. Especially when you have all those unliving just trudging around down there on the ground. Unfortunately, while Ayer and Wink continue to stay safe while searching for Nightshade and Hive in issue number 4 of Hope at World's End, the pair run into an infected Black Adam, who can also fly, of course, and all of the infected population of Kahndaq. Number 7. Suicide Squad Black. This version of the team is still from Prime Earth, but features a new roster of villains / anti-heroes, combined with some familiar faces. The team was once again led by Amanda Waller and featured characters that she forced into action, like the main squad. The members throughout consisted of El Diablo, Azucar, Gentleman Ghost, Juniper, Tiamat, Wither, Clarion the Witch Boy, and Enchantress. A lot of mystical and magical characters on this team. This alternate version of the team referred to themselves as Suicide Squad Black, and appeared in their own limited series titled Suicide Squad Black Files. Number 6. David Ayer's Suicide Squad. Ayer's version of the Suicide Squad in the DCEU featured many familiar and recurring faces when it comes to the squad's members. Led by Amanda Waller, the team featured Harley Quinn, Deadshot, Enchantress, El Diablo, Captain Boomerang, and Katana. Not only was the film dark when it came to exploring the origins of many of these characters, their struggles, and all they had suffered through to become the villains they were today, but it was also dark because of the fact that Enchantress almost succeeded in kind of taking over the world. In the end, the Suicide Squad did manage to save the day, but had to eliminate Enchantress and the innocent June Moon, whom she possesses. Number 5. James Gunn's The Suicide Squad. Gunn's The Suicide Squad will actually be a soft reboot of the former team. His team and his feel of the Suicide Squad will likely be a lot different than Ayer's, although it still seems to have plenty of that Suicide Squad chaos that most fans enjoy. This time around, the team has a lot more members, reminding us once again of why exactly the team is referred to as the Suicide Squad, despite having the official government name of Task Force X, because at any point, anyone can die. This team is sent on only the toughest missions, referred to as suicide missions, because for many they would be considered impossible. You can expect there will be more violence, explosions, and deaths in comparison to the first film. Considering that many of the members of the squad won't make it out alive, this film is likely to be a much darker take on the Suicide Squad when it comes to cinematics. Currently, the team roster includes Harley Quinn, Bloodsport, Peacemaker, The Thinker, Captain Boomerang, Blackguard, Polka Dot Man, Savant, King Shark, Weasel, Javelin, Ratcatcher 2, Soul Soria, TDK, and Mongol. Woo! With likely even more surprise members awaiting to be revealed throughout the duration of the film. Number 4. Telltale Games. In the Telltale Batman game, the Suicide Squad turn up once more, but this version of Amanda Waller's team is different when it comes to their roster. In the Telltale episode The Enemy Within, we learn that both Bane and Harley are on the team, and in a shocking twist, it's revealed that Catwoman is also part of the Suicide Squad. What? Which Waller is also using to apply pressure to Batman, which is pretty dark if you yourself are playing as the Dark Knight. And of course here, at this part, you are. Catwoman expresses, of course, that she did not join the team willingly and tries to warn Batman, but is shocked by Waller's collar before she can finish her sentence. Oh, and Amanda Waller also seems to want Batman to submit and also join her team. Pretty nuts. Number 3. Arkhamverse. Recently, we have gotten another look at the Arkhamverse with the new Suicide Squad game. The Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. The new game was confirmed as being part of the established Arkhamverse and features Suicide Squad members Harley Quinn, King Shark, Captain Boomerang, and Deadshot, taking on one of their darkest missions yet. Amanda Waller has instructed Task Force X this time around to take down the Justice League, which means yeah, somehow this group of misfits is going to have to try and take down heroes like Superman and Wonder Woman. Yikes. Number 2. Assault on Arkham. This animated Batman direct-to-video film, Assault on Arkham, was kind of what I was hoping we'd get when we got the initial Suicide Squad film in terms of plot. This alternate animated version of the team is led by the merciless Amanda Waller, who captures the criminals and forces them to complete missions in order to have years removed from their sentence. They have no say, however, in whether or not they want to be involved, and a skeptical KG Beast even challenges Waller's promise that should they misbehave or deviate from their missions, their heads will be blown off via bombs she had implanted in their necks. No collars this time around. KG Beast learns the hard way that Waller is telling the truth, and after the rest of the team watches KG Beast's head get blown off, they agree to cooperate. Seems like a smart move. Their mission is to break into Arkham and recover a piece of intel. The mission, of course, does get messy as the squad try to break away from Waller's control, and King Shark also ends up getting his head blown off. Number 1. Future's End. The Future's End alternate world is full of alternate versions of some of your favorite characters, and it also happens to include an alternate version of the Suicide Squad as well. They appear in the new Suicide Squad Future's End one-shot, once again reunited and led by Amanda Waller. However, at the beginning of the comic, it's revealed that this version of the Suicide Squad was split up and imprisoned in Bel Rev, before Amanda Waller broke in to reassemble her team. It's also revealed in this one-shot that while imprisoned, her team has been through hell. Harley Quinn has been forcibly given the steroid Venom while imprisoned, turning her into a hulking, muscle-bound version of herself who spends most of her day raging out. They attempted to give Deadshot a gun for an arm, amputating one of his arms and attempting to replace it, which didn't work, and Black Manta had his brain fried after they downloaded Deathstroke's fighting skills into his brain.
Number 10. Wonder Woman Dark Knight's Death Metal. Now, although this is technically in the main continuity, the Wonder Woman that appears in Dark Knight's Death Metal absolutely deserves a spot on this list today because she is one serious badass. Introduced to us in the first issue of Dark Knight's Death Metal, Wonder Woman alongside Swamp Thing is a guard of the demonic-looking prison that holds any villain that does not want to team up with the Batman Who Laughs. So it would kind of seem like she's working for him, but it's revealed later that is not the case when she just impales and rips the Batman Who Laughs in two with her new awesome-looking weapon, the Chainsaw of Truth. Wonder Woman's whole goal in the storyline is to correct the mistakes that have been made and to set everything back on track by somehow resetting the timeline. Basically, she's the Wonder Woman we all know and love, stuck in one of the darkest and scariest DC storylines to date, and that is why she is starting off our list today. Check her out for yourself, starting with 2020's Dark Knight's Death Metal, Volume 1, Number 1. Number 9. Bizarro. You can probably guess it from the name, but Bizarro is the Bizarro version of Wonder Woman. Now, if you're not familiar with Bizarro, he is basically an incomplete clone of Superman, which means that Bizarro is an incomplete clone of Wonder Woman. She was created using the powers of the fifth dimension and is meant to be the evil counterpart to our Wonder Woman, but I think we all know that Bizarro versions of any hero never really get the job done. Even though Bizarro possesses both the bracelets of submission and the lasso of truth like her counterpart, she's only strong enough to challenge Wonder Woman in a one-on-one duel, and when it comes to brains, oh man, trust me, she does not even come close to Wonder Woman. As a member of the Injustice League of Un-America, Bizarro was one of the many that was captured by Metallo in his attempt to rule over Bizarro World, but was thankfully freed by Bizarro himself. Now, I think my favorite thing about Bizarro and the other Bizarro copies is their way of speaking. She spoke in a very twisted tongue and always meant the opposite of what she said. For example, when she says, "I love you," she actually means, "I hate you." Check her out for yourself in 2015's The Multiversity Guidebook, Number 1. Number 8. Brunilda. Hailing from Earth 10, a universe where many of our favorite heroes have been turned into villainous versions of themselves, comes Valkyrie Brunilda, the Wonder Woman of this Earth that is based on Norse mythology, as opposed to, the original Greek. On Earth 10, all these superheroes we're familiar with are part of the German army and are believers of fascism, so from that you can probably assume that most of them are pure evil. Brunilda is a member of the New Reichman alongside other dark iterations of the Justice League members, whose only real goal is to rid the world of the freedom fighters and spread their ideals across the land. The New Reichman are, however, taken down pretty much from the inside after Overman began to feel guilty about his past deeds. Honestly, put simply, Brunilda is an evil version of Wonder Woman that can and will go to any lengths necessary to get the job done. Give her story a read for yourself, starting with her first appearance in 2015's The Multiversity Guidebook, Number 1. Number 7. Deceased Wonder Woman. Taking place in the Deceased DC universe, Deceased is a mini-series that follows the aftermath of Cyborg's body being used to carry a version of the anti-life equation that ended up turning the general population into zombies. In this mini-series, we see Wonder Woman become a member of the Unliving, which is basically DC's equivalent of zombies, whose whole purpose is to spread anti-life by either infecting or killing living things. They show very little signs of intelligence, and they still retain the ability to utilize their skill sets, powers, and technologies respectively to a surprisingly effective manner. The Infected have also shown numerous times of coming up with very elaborate strategies and tactical decisions to bypass pockets of resistance and cause as much death and destruction as possible. Our Infected Wonder Woman actually showed that she was able to form coherent and full sentences when she was interrogated by Cyborg, implying that she still has some humanity left in her. However, after being set free, she immediately decapitated Cyborg to preserve any secret she told him. Honestly, all I have to say is Wonder Woman's strength and skills combined with the mind and body of a zombie makes for a scary hero. So check her out for yourself, starting with 2019's Deceased, number 1. Number 6, Whom God Destroys Wonder Woman. This version of Wonder Woman only showed up in a 4-issue series called Superman and Wonder Woman Who Gods Destroy. This storyline takes place in an alternate world where Europe is still under the control of the Germans, and Lois Lane actually steps up to the plate as the new Wonder Woman in order to protect those around her from the tyrannical ruling of the original Wonder Woman and Superman. Not a whole lot is known about this evil Wonder Woman other than the fact that she betrayed her home in order to obtain more power. And just like the other evil versions of her, her lack of humanity is incredibly evident as she looks down on Lois Lane's Wonder Woman for just being immortal. The story ends with Lois defeating the evil Wonder Woman, and it is revealed that the gods Zeus and Hera were actually playing a game of chess using the world as their chess pieces. And that's why everything is so messed up. Oddly enough though, the story doesn't quite end there, because once everyone is defeated, everything seems to be pretty much back to normal. Superman, Lois, and Wonder Woman all decide to live together on Superman's fortress on the moon. Check out this miniseries for yourself, starting with 1997's Superman and Wonder Woman Whom Gods Destroy, number 1. Number 5, Frank Miller's Wonder Woman. Hopefully we all know who Frank Miller is, you know, the writer of The Dark Knight Returns and Daredevil Born Again. Well, Miller also took a crack at the character that is Wonder Woman in his Batman series The Dark Knight Strikes Back. In this series, heroes like Superman, Wonder Woman, and Captain Marvel have been forced to work for the government, since their loved ones are being held hostage and are under threat. Superman is even ordered by the president, who turns out to be a computer-generated front for Lex Luthor and Brainiac, to stop Batman. It eventually gets to the point in the story where Superman, Wonder Woman, and their daughter Lara joins forces with Batman once again because they deem his plan to be the only way to get out of this whole mess. Now I'll be honest, this Wonder Woman isn't on this list today because of how dark the story is. It's mostly because this is considered to be one of the worst incarnations of Wonder Woman to date. Now she's definitely the warrior you expect from Wonder Woman, but her cold and quite frankly sexist portrayal in the comics was nothing short of distasteful. It also doesn't help that her humanity was put in question throughout the entirety of the graphic novel. If you feel like you can stomach it, check out this Wonder Woman and this whole series starting with 2002's The Dark Knight Strikes Again, number 1. Number 4, Wonder Woman God of War. Following 2011's Flashpoint event, DC rebooted the entirety of its continuity into the New 52. In the new Wonder Woman, the story of Hippolyta creating Diana from clay is revealed to actually be a lie, and Diana is actually a child of Zeus, and the whole clay bit was a cover story intended to keep Zeus's jealous wife Hera from killing her. Sometime later during her training, Diana became the secret protege of Ares, the god of war, only to have him drop her when she refused to kill for him. Years later, after Diana learned her true origin, she found herself embroiled in the power struggles of her Olympian kin. In the course of one adventure, she had to kill Ares, which made her the new god of war, and although she fought against the role for a while, as the battle against the monstrous firstborn of Zeus heated up, she stepped right into the job. Honestly, who knows what Wonder Woman creator William Marston would have made of this, given that he wrote her as this force of peace and this nemesis of the god of war. He might be happier with the events in DC Rebirth, which implies that the whole, Diana's New 52 adventures didn't actually happen. Number 3, Superwoman. I feel like we all knew this alternate Wonder Woman was going to end up on this list today. Hailing from Earth 3, the Earth that is said to be the birthplace of evil, Superwoman is a renegade Amazon who is also taking on the identity of Lois Lane, depending on the version that we're talking about here. Depending on her origin, she is either from Paradise Island or its antimatter equivalent known as Damnation Island. While there are many versions of her out there, one thing that they all have in common is her sadistic personality and the love triangle she has with her colleagues. Equipped with a lasso of submission, a barbed and much scarier looking version of the lasso of truth that forces the captor to not only comply with the user, but also fall in love with them, which she has used a few times to her advantage, if you know what I mean. As a member of the crime syndicate, she helped imprison most of the members of the various Justice Leagues in the Firestorm Matrix and began a reign of terror over the world, eliminating any resistance in their way. Give her story a read for yourself, starting with 1964's Justice League of America number 29, or skip ahead to 2013's Justice League Volume 2, number 23. Number 2, Injustice Wonder Woman. easily one of the most dark and evil versions of Wonder Woman out there. Not only did she see Superman's descent into evil before it ever happened, but she also actively encouraged it, practically manipulating the Man of Steel when he was at his worst for her own personal gain. Not only that, but by the events of the original Injustice video game, she had been ruling Paradise Island with an iron fist and showed absolutely no remorse. She served as Superman's right hand and took the place of Lois Lane as his new love interest. However, he clearly showed no love towards her because he was still mourning the loss of his dead wife, who he killed himself. When she is confronted by her mainstream counterpart, the mainstream Wonder Woman reprimands her for blindly following a man who does not feel as much devotion to her as she does to him. And once Wonder Woman is defeated, she is taken by her fellow Amazons to be imprisoned for her role in the regime and is later seen on Kahndaq during the events of Injustice 2 as she has been exiled. Take a look at her story for yourself, starting with 2013's Injustice Gods Among Us #1, or honestly just feel free to replay the games. And finally, #1, Flashpoint Wonder Woman. When the Flash accidentally created Flashpoint as a result of attempting to save his mother, the ripple effects changed the timeline to the worst it's ever been. You know, Batman is Thomas Wayne, Superman is in a government facility, and Wonder Woman is the monarch of the Amazons and currently at war with Atlantis, all because she killed Aquaman's wife, who knew Wonder Woman was having an affair with her husband. With all of the normal powers and accessories that make Wonder Woman a formidable foe, this iteration of Wonder Woman seems to lack the empathy that prevents Diana from absolutely losing it and killing everyone. As the war went on, Aquaman and Wonder Woman forged an alliance to take down a mutual enemy, Batman. As both monarchs send their troops to Batman's lair, the world is erased, killing every single inhabitant. Absolutely cruel and bloodthirsty, this Wonder Woman has something that she shares with her Injustice counterpart: her lack of love, and above all, her sickening lack of humanity. Now, I love the Flashpoint timeline with all of my heart, so why not check it and her out for yourself, starting with 2011's Flashpoint Volume 2, #1.
Number 10. Grim Knight. The origin story of the Grim Knight is similar to the Batman of Prime Earth, but is warped. Instead of the Dark Knight, we know him as the Grim Knight, because this Batman is not afraid to use guns. So yes, you could say he's similar to the OG Batman from the 40s, but he is also far more brutal and ruthless. This version of Batman ended up killing Joe Chill when he was just a child. After Chill shot his parents, he stumbled away in the darkness, but Chill tripped and dropped his gun and Martha Wayne's necklace. While he searched for the necklace in the dark, a young Bruce grabbed the gun and aimed it at Chill, killing him in cold blood with tears in his eyes. This set Bruce down the path of believing that killing was the best way to deal with criminals that opposed justice. This version of Bruce was still inspired by a bat crashing through his window to become Batman, but he also shot that bat when it did. Number 9. Death of Superman. After Superman dies at the hands of Doomsday, Lois becomes depressed and jaded, believing that the world failed Clark. She ends up merging with the Eradicator, who claims it failed in its mission to resurrect the fallen Superman, and instead bonds with Lois so that she can succeed where she believes other heroes have failed, fighting on in Clark's name. However, Lois goes too far compared to Superman, killing those who oppose her, villains and heroes alike. Superman returns, but only lives long enough to express his disappointment and disgust in what Lois Lane has become before he is killed by Cyborg Superman. Super depressing story. Number 8. The Merciless. Like the Earth 12 belonging to the non-dark multiverse, on Earth -12, Batman and Wonder Woman are also in a romantic relationship together. They fight side by side in a war that threatens to engulf the entire population of Earth against the god of war, Ares. After countless have died and they're basically the only two left standing, they finally succeed, but Batman feels in order to protect the world, he should be the one to wield Ares' power. Knowing that Wonder Woman herself would not take Ares' helmet, and with it his power, and that she would actually not allow Bruce to take it for fear of it corrupting him, Batman sees no other choice but to kill Diana. He takes Ares' helmet for himself and fights on, claiming to fight in honor and in memory of the fallen warrior and his love, Wonder Woman. Number 7. Blackest Knight. This is a wild story wherein Sinestro never shared the powers of the White Lantern. Here, Necron, who speaks through Darkseid, attempts to obliterate the entire universe. Sinestro is both Black and White Lantern, known as the Limbo Lantern, and sees only one way to save the universe, by creating a new universe in Dove's image, by plugging her into the source. This almost works, except at the last minute their ally, Mr. Miracle's conviction wavers, and he ends up killing Dove to avoid creating and living in a world without his wife Barda. Instead, Sinestro is forced to use the only teammate he has left, Lobo, to create a new universe. Yeah, Slim pickings, I guess. The world instead is made in Lobo's image, who taps into the source, eliminating all Black Lanterns and restarting a dark and more grotesque looking world which Sinestro remains trapped in, unable to leave due to Tempest preventing him from doing so. That sucks. Number 6. The Devastator. The Devastator is another twisted version of Bruce Wayne who was pushed too far. For mysterious reasons that remain unknown, the Superman of the Devastator's dark universe randomly underwent a change that caused him to go on a full-out rampage, killing everyone. Batman was one of the last few left to try and stop him, attempting to do so with a kryptonite spear. After Superman blasts off Batman's arm, however, he is driven to desperate measures. Batman is forced to activate his own version of the Doomsday virus, which takes over his body and transforms him into a doomsday-like creature, becoming the Devastator. Although he fails in saving his world, he succeeds in killing the Superman of his universe, before heading out to try and save other alternate Earths by infecting them with the virus in order to protect them from their world Superman. Although, you know, they never really asked for that, so it's pretty horrifying. Number 5. Infinite Crisis. In the dark multiverse, Ted Kord is not killed by Maxwell Lord. Instead, Ted pretends to agree to join Lord in cleaning house when it comes to his plans for Checkmate, but he betrays Lord and kills him. Brother Eye threatens to push on with the OMAC project, but Kord offers that he could help to guide Brother Eye and take Maxwell Lord's place, help Brother Eye save and protect the planet as Lord had promised Brother would. Ted ends up attempting to recruit Booster Gold to help him with Brother Eye, but Booster isn't so sure about his friend's plan. In the end, he teams up with Superboy Prime, who has been plotting with Alexander Luthor of Earth 3 to create a perfect world in the main continuity, but Luthor betrays him. Superboy and Blue Beetle, who's now directly connected to the Brother Eye, end up teaming up. They end up attempting to take out 50% of Earth's superhero population as recommended by Brother Eye, but in the end they're forced to eliminate or assimilate all of the superhero populace, who obviously are like, no, you can't just kill us, with Ted Kord sacrificing his humanity in order to completely demolish all of that superhero threat. Number 4. The Murder Machine. After the death of Alfred, Batman in his grief seeks to create an AI in Alfred's image and employs the help of Cyborg. Bruce calls the project the Alfred Protocol. Alfred Protocol is also programmed to act as Bruce's infallible bodyguard, and it's this programming which causes everything to go sideways. The Alfred Protocol spreads, taking out every villain, every criminal he deems a threat to Bruce Wayne's life. However, it doesn't end there. The Alfred Protocol also realizes in order to protect Bruce, it also needs to change him, protect him from himself and his emotions by eradicating them, starting with his fear. This change infects and transforms Batman into a cyborg version of himself known as the Murder Machine, who then goes about killing everyone, determining that everyone and his attachment to them is a weakness. Number 3. The Batman Who Laughs. This dark multiverse story was so terrifying it got its own series. The Batman Who Laughs actually got a miniseries to explain just how his story went down. By now we all should mostly know it, but if you haven't read it, it's chilling and thrilling and it's definitely worth a read. In the story, it's explained how Batman became corrupted by Joker venom when he ended up losing control and killing the Joker, triggered by being forced to watch the Joker kill children's parents in front of them before exposing them to Joker venom and driving them insane. When Batman killed Joker, this exposed him to Joker venom, which was released with the Joker's dying breath from his heart. Batman was then driven insane by the venom, becoming a warped Joker-Batman hybrid, and set out killing everyone, even the members of the Bat family, only allowing Damian Wayne to be converted with the venom and join him. He also later confessed that Alfred was one of the last people to try and stop him by blowing him up, but he managed to thwart and capture Alfred and break him, turning him into his own loyal servant once more. Number 2. The Judas Contract. So as bad as the Judas Contract storyline in the main continuity was for the Teen Titans, apparently its consequences could have been a lot more horrific and a lot worse. In this story, Tara finds herself inspired to become her own murderous villain all her own after one of Dick Grayson's inspirational chats. Great job, Dick. Grayson thinks that he's inspired Tara to become her own person separate from Geoforce's shadow though, not Deathstroke's shadow, as he does not know yet that Tara is actually a spy. She ends up unlocking her potential as a result, becoming more powerful than ever, taking up the name Gaia. She not only tears Slade Wilson apart, literally, but she kills the entire team of Teen Titans, even poor Beast Boy, no! And she also kills the entire Justice League. Number 1. Nightfall. If you haven't read the Tales from the Dark Multiverse, you obviously need to, as they are all pretty crazy, and honestly, the scariest tale can be found in this first one issue. This is a spooky retelling of the Batman story Nightfall. When Bruce has his back broken, he passes the mantle of Batman onto Jean-Paul Valley, aka Azrael. But when he returns, Azrael refuses to give up the mantle. Instead of Bruce Wayne and the Bat family winning it back as they did in the main continuity, this time around Bruce fails. He instead is held captive and tortured for 30 years by Azrael, who rules Gotham with a bloody and merciless iron fist as Saint Batman. Bruce eventually escapes with the help of Bane's son, Torn, and his mother, Lady Shiva. But his time in imprisonment, where he was slowly dissected, has changed Bruce, and no longer is he the man and hero we once knew.